Greetings all, and welcome to the 17th episode of TM Technical Movement. For today, we will be taking a look at the Double Team, Minimize, Smokescreen, Sweet Scent, Odor Sleuth, Mind Reader, Lock On, Protect, Endure, and Safeguard techniques. Much as the name might suggest, the Double Team technique involves moving so rapidly from position to position that shadowy images of the user are left in its wake. While the movement speed of a Pokémon can be independent of its combat speed, the Double Team technique effectively throws both factors out in favor of simple agility. By moving extremely rapidly between 2 points separated by short distance, Pokémon utilizing this technique can actually bypass the natural ability of regular eyesight to detect motion and effectively generate one, if not several, shadow clones that move in unison, or in exceptional cases independently, of the original Pokémon. These shadows have the general effect of increasing the user's evasion when used, but the true hazard they pose is that only Pokémon with advanced forms of eyesight are actually able to detect differences between the original and the shadows, and even then, the difference might be too slight to be noticeable in the heat of battle. This simple but efficient design has made the move extremely popular among defensive specialists, and is the primary reason why Silphco decided to release the move as TM32 within the first generation line of TMs. Needless to say, the move's exceptional popularity has allowed it to maintain its status as TM32 within nearly all successive generations before being discontinued in their 8th generation line, only to be reinstated as TM32 within the recent Sinnoh Special Edition set before discontinuation once more, having been one of the company's most profitable TMs ever. Attacks and techniques that raise a Pokemon's accuracy or lower an opponent's evasion are highly recommended for dealing with the Double Team technique. As one might imagine, the Minimize technique involves physically compressing one's body into a smaller, tighter mass in an effort to reduce the chances of being hit. While moves like Defense Curl are designed to enable Pokémon to curl themselves up tightly to reduce damage from physical attacks, the Minimize technique is designed to allow Pokémon to scrunch up their bodies so tightly that they physically shrink in size, and turn critically increasing their evasion about twice as much as normal. Despite its simplicity, the Minimize technique is a versatile move that can make striking an opponent extremely difficult when used more than once, and can certainly force your opponent to run out of stamina quickly if they don't have access to many strong attacks that are particularly accurate. Unfortunately, the move does have one negative side effect. Because body size is physically reduced by this technique, there is less surface area available for damage, so the damage inflicted by pressure-dependent attacks, particularly Stomp, Steamroller, Body Slam, Dragon Rush, Flying Press, and Phantom Force, will be doubled, and the attacks will always hit their mark. Even so, the Minimize technique is a useful move that can at least allow otherwise defensively weak Pokémon to potentially survive a bit longer before being knocked out. Attacks and techniques that raise a Pokémon's accuracy or lower an opponent's evasion are highly recommended for dealing with the Minimize technique, as is counterattacking with a Stomp, Steamroller, Body Slam, Dragon Rush, Flying Press, or Phantom Force attack. As one might imagine, the Smokescreen technique involves spreading a dark cloud of smoke or ink around the opponent in an attempt to blind them and lower the accuracy. Instead of wasting energy on buffing their own defenses or lowering their opponents, some Pokémon have come to rely on far sneakier tactics to create an advantage for them in battle. The Smokescreen technique is a prime example of this, and involves either blowing thick smoke or spreading a thin, inky mist around the opposition. This serves to obscure the vision and prevent them from properly aiming their attacks, in turn lowering their accuracy. Unfortunately, the true effectiveness of a Smokescreen technique is relatively subjective and actually depends on how strong the opponent's eyesight is, and how dependent they are on their eyesight for survival, so its usefulness can easily range from pointless to catastrophic. Overall though, the Smokescreen technique is an interesting surprise that few opponents will be completely immune to, so its purpose as a distraction is more than validated in practice. A strong gust of wind that can blow away the obscuring gas, as well as attacks and techniques that raise a Pokémon's accuracy or lower an opponent's evasion, are highly recommended for dealing with the Smokescreen technique. Much as the name suggests, the Sweet Scent technique involves the user releasing a sweet-smelling scent from his body in an effort to attract and potentially distract nearby opponents. The Sweet Scent technique is a fairly basic move that has little purpose beyond its actual intention, to attract nearby Pokémon that are otherwise out of sight or too quick to strike. During a Sweet Scent technique, the user releases a vibrant fragrance from his body either through pollen or some other compound, which then wafts through the air and generates a pleasant smell that nearby opponents and Pokémon in general outside of battle are attracted to. In battle, this has the effect of critically lowering the evasion of all nearby opponents, about twice as much as normal, but nothing more. In the wild, however, this move can actually make it easier to locate wild Pokémon, as the smell will practically force them out of hiding and bring them out into the open as long as the weather is clear. Moreover, it shares with the item Honey the distinction of being the only proven way to perfectly and automatically trigger horde battles as witnessed in the Kalos and Hoenn regions. This alone can make the move useful to have around, even if its purpose in battle is only lackluster, a trait that Silphco took under great consideration when they released the move as TM12 within the 2nd generation line of TMs. Unfortunately, the public did not agree with their decision, and the move was discontinued afterwards. A strong gust of wind that can blow away the alluring scent, as well as attacks and techniques that raise a Pokemon's evasion or lower an opponent's accuracy, are highly recommended for dealing with the Sweet Scent technique. In essence, the Odor Sleuth technique involves releasing a wave of energy that forces a particular target to become physically identifiable by heightening the physical signature of its chemical odors. The Odor Sleuth technique is complicated in its execution and still a bit of a mystery in terms of its actual function, but its effects in battle are more than recognizable to the average trainer. At its most basic level, this technique effectively involves using the opponent's chemical odors against them by releasing a wave of energy that is designed to heighten the effect visible light has on the chemical vapors, using it to grant an otherwise elusive or intangible creature a definite physically observable form. It may not be a coincidence then that the move is generally learned by Pokémon that dominantly rely on the noses above most of the other bodily senses, at least at a young age. In short, the move is designed to do two different things. First, it is designed to eliminate any stat changes the opponent has made to its evasion stat and make them easier to hit, as if they were at the start of the battle. Second, perhaps more importantly in the context of battle though, the move forces ghost types to manifest a completely physical state for a short period of time, and thus makes ghosts vulnerable to the effects of normal and fighting type moves. While it might only last until the end of battle, this interesting trait can make the Odor Sleuth technique a dangerous weapon against ghost type users that otherwise enjoy using their immunity to normal and fighting type moves to their advantage. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Odor Sleuth technique. Much as the name might suggest, the Mind Reader technique involves using basic premonition skills to read the opponent's mind and ensure that the next strike targeted at them will hit. The Mind Reader technique is an advanced meditation technique that occupies the line between actual psychic powers and simple intuition. When using a Mind Reader technique, a Pokémon calms its mind and empties it, allowing it to receive electromagnetic brain waves from surrounding creatures. By focusing on the waves given off by a particular target, a Pokémon can form a temporary mental bond with them and effectively copy their every motion within their minds. In practice, this means that the user will be able to follow their target and strike them perfectly with whatever attack they decide to use next, regardless of the move's accuracy rate or even the position of the target relative to the battlefield. The enormous amount of stamina needed for this technique can make it somewhat difficult to use properly, but when applied correctly in battle, it can more than prove to be a devastating blow that can give the user a tremendous advantage against agile opponents. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Mind Reader technique outside of switching your Pokémon. In essence, the lock-on technique involves utilizing advanced electromagnetic or mechanical detection systems to completely isolate a target and hone in on it to ensure a perfect strike. The lock-on technique could effectively be thought of as a semi-organic counterpart to the basic Mind Reader technique. Instead of focusing and homing in on the thoughts of another Pokémon utilizing the lock-on technique use advanced mechanical or even electromagnetic detection units within their bodies or orbital cavities to search for a particular creature. The signals that are used to differentiate between targets vary depending upon the Pokémon using it, but some system examples include electromagnetic field measurements, infrared scanners, thermal scanners, and even scanning technology that can differentiate between mechanical and biological components. Once the signal for a specific target has been temporarily acquired, the user has a perfect lock on it and will be able to track it effectively enough to ensure that the next move used will always hit regardless of its normal accuracy rate. It might not have much use outside of attacks otherwise extremely inaccurate, but considering that many of the Pokémon that learn this move have the capacity to also learn devastating moves like Zap Cannon, its usefulness in battle is more than validated. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the lock-on technique outside of switching your Pokémon. The Protect technique essentially involves generating an energy barrier designed to completely reflect and destabilize incoming attacks. The true mechanics of the Protect technique are still a bit of a mystery, as the move is performed slightly differently by every Pokémon able to actually learn it, but what it basically boils down to is a temporary energy shield raised before nearly any other Pokémon can attack that acts as a maximum guard against most attacks and techniques, preventing anything from happening to the user due to external sources. This energy shield is effectively unbreakable under most circumstances, and is capable of halting any sort of attack in its tracks, but it does come with a few quirks that make it fairer to the average opponent. For one thing, the energy shield is inherently unstable despite how strong it is initially, and will begin to become weaker and weaker if used repeatedly. In practice, the chances of the move working consecutively are decreased by 50% every time it is used, capping at a minimum success rate of 12.5%, so the chances of it even working more than once in a row are pretty low. Moreover, there are a handful of attacks and techniques that are actually able to bypass and even break the Protect technique completely, in turn rendering it little more than a wasted turn in battle. Despite these flaws, the Protect technique can be an unstoppable weapon if used intelligently in battle, and is capable of being learned by just about any species because of its simple construct. It was these features that led Silphco to release the move as TM17 within the second generation line of TMs, from which it has gained such tremendous popularity that it has been reproduced in all successive generations, including the recent Sinnoh Special Edition set, only switching to TM25 of the company's 8th generation line and TML7 and the 9th generation line as a numerical change. Unless you have access to one of the few attacks or techniques capable of bypassing the defensive shielding, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Protect technique.
Much as its name might suggest, the Endure technique involves bracing oneself against all incoming attacks in an attempt to enable at least some form of survival afterwards. The Endure technique can almost be thought of as a weaker form of the basic Protect technique without the need for an actual barrier. When using Endure, Pokémon essentially braces its entire body and waits for any and all attacks that come near it. While in this protective stance, every blow that lands, regardless of how damaging it might be or potentially life-threatening, will be weakened to the point where the user will always have at least 1 HP left when it gets to attack next. This capacity to survive with even a small semblance of consciousness more often than not proves to be a vital defensive tactic for the many species able to learn it naturally, especially at a young age, but it still has its limitations. Over time, the user will become weaker and weaker from using the move consecutively, and the chances of them surviving oncoming blows without being knocked out will effectively be reduced by 50% with every consecutive use, so using it even twice in a row can be a risk not worth taking in many situations. Even so, this move can prove to be vital if the opponent is afflicted by a status condition or environmental factor that is about to take its final toll. It was for this reason that Silph Co decided to release the move as TM20 within the second generation line of TMs, but lagging sales eventually forced its discontinuation. The company tried again to make the move popular by releasing it as TM58 within their 4th generation line, but the same issue eventually doomed it for the second time until it was made into TR26 for the company's first line of TRs, and then reinstated as TM58 within the recent Sinnoh Special Edition set, and as TM47 within the 9th generation line. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Endure technique. In effect, the Safeguard technique involves generating an energy shield that helps reduce the effectiveness of attacks and techniques in such a way as to prevent the infliction of status conditions. The Safeguard technique can almost be thought of as a modified version of the Protect technique that trades the ability to prevent damage from all attacks for the purpose of longevity and stamina. The Safeguard itself is an energy barrier that is designed to reduce the overall damaging qualities of attacks that normally cause status conditions, not so much as to actually affect the damage they can do, but at least to the point where they can no longer inflict any status conditions at all. This minor protection comes to the cost of relatively little stamina and is usable by a wide variety of Pokémon, but what makes it truly worthwhile is that the Safeguard lasts for about 5 combat turns and can thus offer protection for many minutes in battle. This can help trainers that are struggling to overcome opponents that rely on status conditions to deal the most damage, such as poison types, and can easily help neutralize any lacking threats that a status condition might otherwise pose to the combat effectiveness of their Pokémon. It was for this reason that Silph Co decided to release the move as TM20 within the 3rd through 7th generation line of TMs and recent Sinnoh Special Edition set, and as TM19 in the 8th generation line, from which it earned a relatively modest but startlingly strong level of popularity before being discontinued in the 9th generation line. The only thing that can be done to counter the effects of a Safeguard technique is to blow the energy barrier away with a defog technique, or simply wait for the move's effects to wear off.
That's it for now, but look forward to the next set of moves here on TM Technical Movement. Thank you all for watching this video. It always brings me great joy to see others enjoying the work I do to try and make the world of Pokemon and the fascinating creatures that lay inside of it feel as real as they possibly can. If you really enjoy my work, please feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, as I always do my best to respond to any and all comments that are left on my videos. In addition, if you wish to learn more about my work and help support it, you can find links to my Patreon page, as well as email and other contact information to my work on DeviantArt in the video description down below. Furthermore, you can find a link to my Discord server there as well if you'd like to get a first glimpse at what videos are coming up next and converse with other fans of the world of Pokemon. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and have a wonderful rest of your day.